Alright, everybody, today we're going to read this story. It's called The Life Cycle of a Honeybee, and the author is Bobby Calden. So you can tell that this is a non-fiction story, so it means not fake. It's a real story about facts, and I can tell from this because it has a table of contents that tells me the different facts about bees that I can learn about here. And the illustrations are not illustrations, they're not drawings, they're actual photographs. So it says, what is a honeybee? A honeybee is an insect. Insects are invertebrates or animals with no backbones. Instead, they have hard coverings called exoskeletons on the outsides of their bodies. Unlike many other insects, honeybees are social. They live in colonies or groups. Each colony of honeybees build a hive where they live. So if they're social, that means they like to have friends. There's different types of honeybees. So there are 3 types of honeybees: workers, drones, or queens. Worker bees are all female. They are the smallest honeybees. So if you look at this, these are the worker bees. They build, clean, and protect the hive, care for young bees, and groom or clean the queen. Workers also collect pollen and nectar outside the hive, which they make into food for the entire colony, so all the bees. Drones are male honeybees. They spend most of their time inside the hive, but they do not work. Their only job is to mate or join together with a queen to make babies. Only one queen lives in each colony. She is the largest honeybee. She lays all the eggs from which new honeybees will hatch. So if you were outside and you saw a bee, would it be a female, a girl bee, or would it be a male, boy bee? It would most likely be a female because they said those are the worker bees. Those are the ones that go to the flowers. Busy body. A honeybee's body is made up of 3 sections: a head, a thorax, or midsection, and an abdomen, or lower body. Each section has many important parts. The different body parts of a honeybee have special functions, and then it tells us a function is a job. Look at the diagram below to learn how a honeybee's body works. So here's its head. They have antennae just like the butterfly did. They use those to smell, feel, and send messages. This is the tube that they suck the nectar from the flowers. So remember the butterflies, they had a tube too that it was all curly, and then they could make it straight to get out of the flower. This is their legs, and it says that the pollen gets stuck to their legs. And then back here on their hind legs, they have a special part called a pollen basket. Where do honeybees live? A honeybee hive is a busy place. It is very well built to meet all the needs of the colony. Each hive is a nest, a home, and a food factory all in one. Making beeswax. Hives are made from beeswax, which is a substance that honeybees produce with their bodies. Workers shed the wax in flakes. They soften the flakes with saliva is your spit, and shape the wax using their front legs and mandibles or mouths. Beat for heat. The workers beat their wings as they work. Heat from their moving muscles warms the air in the hive. Wax is easy to shape at a high temperature. The workers keep the hive at an ideal temperature, about 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So think about when we were at school, what temperature do we like to be in? Like if in our classroom, who can remember? Our classroom, about perfect, would be 72 degrees. And then if it was really, really hot outside, it would be what temperature? 100 degrees. So their hive is 95 degrees. So that is not perfect for us. That would mean it was hot. Once the wax is prepared, the workers get busy. They build the wax into hexagons or 6-sided cells. This shape makes the cells strong enough to support up to 25 times their own weight. There are about 100,000 cells in one hive. They are tightly packed together to form a comb or sheet of cells. The cells are placed side by side and back to back, so there's no wasted space between them. So if you look, those cells are really tight together. There's nothing the middle. The cells in a hive have different uses. The cells near the center of the hive are used to raise young honeybees. Cells around the center store food. Day and night, thousands of workers scurry over the many cells in the hive to make sure that every job is being done. What is a life cycle? All animals go through a set of changes called a life cycle. First, they are born, or they hatch from eggs. Then they grow and change into adults. As adults, animals can make babies. When a baby is born, a new life cycle begins. An animal's life cycle is not the same as its lifespan. A lifespan is the length of time an animal is alive. So a lifespan is how long you were living for. The 3 different types of honeybees have different lifespans, and honeybees born in the spring have shorter lifespans than those born in the fall. Workers live between 20 and 340 days, so less than a year, depending on when they are born. Drones live between 20 and 90 days, so less than 3 months. Queens live longer than drones and workers. They may live as long as 5 years, no matter what time of year they are born. So here's a picture of the life cycle of the bee. So they start as eggs, and then they turn into the larva. Then those larvae shed their skin or metamorphosize, and they turn into the pupa. And so that's when they are inside, like a caterpillar, when it gets inside of its chrysalis, and then they turn into the adult bees. It says it takes a worker about 21 days to complete its life cycle. So it takes 21 days for that to happen. For a worker bee, a drone takes 24 days, and a queen 15 days. When the queen lays eggs, a new life cycle begins. The perfect place. All the eggs in a hive are laid by the queen of the colony. There are always many eggs in the hive because the queen lays up to 1,500 eggs per day. Each day, she searches the hive for empty cells, brood cells, that she can lay eggs. She uses only cells that have been thoroughly cleaned by the workers. The queen lays a single egg inside each cell. The egg is attached to the cell wall with a sticky substance called mucus. Inside the egg is a tiny honeybee embryo and a yolk. The yolk is the food the embryo will eat. So there's the egg. So this picture is zoomed in very close because those are really tiny. After 3 days, the egg hatches. The new honeybee larva does not break out of its egg or soft shell as other animal babies do. Instead, the egg membrane dissolves. So it's not like the caterpillar that used its little egg tooth, or not the caterpillar, a bird that uses its little egg tooth. Its shell just goes away. The newly hatched larva looks very similar to the egg in shape, size, and color. Honeybee larvae have no eyes, wings, legs, or antennae because they do not yet need these parts. The larva stage of the life cycle is about only one thing: eating. So all they do when they're a larva is eat. The larvae eat as much as they can in order to grow bigger. If they do not eat the proper types, so the right types, and amounts of food, they may become small adults or have shorter than normal lifespans. So they've got to eat a lot so that they can grow up to be healthy bees. Tiny white larvae feed constantly on food, so non-stop, that is brought by workers called nurse bees. The nurse bees feed the larvae a mixture called brood food. It contains substances from the workers' bodies as well as water and honey, which only honeybees make. As the larvae get older, they may also feed on bee bread, a mixture of honey and pollen that has been prepared as food. Each larva receives hundreds of small meals a day from the nurse bees. So those nurse bees are working hard if they're eating hundreds of meals a day. We usually eat 3 meals and then we have a snack. Queen larvae eat a special type of brood food called royal jelly. This substance has more honey than other types of brood food. The queen is fed royal jelly and a lot of it through her life cycle. So the larvae feed and grow constantly for several days, but their skins do not grow with their bodies. The larvae must molt. So hopefully you remember that from the caterpillars. They molt, they shed their skin. Yesterday, y'all, we were on a walk and we saw the skin of a snake and it was huge and I was so scared. I was like, oh, we gotta go. So lots of animals molt, or they shed their skin. So just like the caterpillars, the larvae of the bee do the same thing. So that they have enough room to grow bigger. When a larva has molted 4 times, workers create a wax cap or cover over its cell and seal it shut. So they cover it up. The larva stretches out its body and spins a cocoon or silk case around itself. So there's the cocoon. So just like the butterfly. This is so crazy. Butterflies and bees have a lot in common. It makes a cocoon. The larva spends the next few days inside the cocoon where it begins to metamorphosize. While in the cocoon, the honeybee changes from a larva to a pupa. The new pupa's body is almost fully developed, except for its wings. It grows darker and its insides change. The pupa then completes the 5th and final molt of its life cycle. The last molt changes it into a honeybee. The new adult's body is soft, so the honeybee must wait in its capped cell for several hours before its body hardens. When the honeybee is ready, it carefully chews the edge of the wax cap to separate it from the cell wall. The workers then collect the wax caps and reuse them elsewhere in the hive. When the honeybee finally struggles out of its cell, it stretches out its antennae and wings and waits for the hair on its body to dry. Workers then breed food to the young adult and begin grooming it. So grooming it is like if you get your dog groomed, they're cleaning it. The new adult honeybees may look very different than they did as larvae, but they are still very hungry. Workers, drones, and queens all need plenty of food in their first day as adults. Their bodies look fully grown, but their insides continue to develop for the next few days. In order to be healthy adults, workers eat pollen and honey. Drones eat brood food, and queens continue to eat royal jelly. A successful colony needs healthy adults. The end. So let's see. At the end of this story, there is a glossary and an index. So the glossary tells us some words that we could have learned from reading this story. And the index, if we picked out a word like here, it says guard beads. And it tells me that I could find out about guard beads on page 19. Alright, so we have learned quite a bit about honeybees, and it is very amazing that there are a lot of similarities to butterflies. Alright, have a great day.